Welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Thirst for Knowledge.
Yeah. Episode 6.
Episode 6? That's more than 5.
Oof, getting there. Wait, what? Probably halfway through, maybe?
For those who don't know yet or haven't figured it out, we do 2 shows in a shot. So the odd number episodes is when we just get started. And the even number episodes is we're halfway through an evening of drinking and talking about drinking.
Yeah. So maybe a few more giggles.
Extra giggles, losing my place in what I'm reading.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Yeah. So gin this time. The other clear alcohol.
Gin. Gin originated in the 17th century in the Netherlands when a Dutch physician, Franciscus Sylvius, created a medicinal tonic called juniper. And juniper was made by distilling grain alcohol and infusing it with juniper berries, which are believed at the time to have a multitude of medicinal properties. And in time, just like we learned from vodka, Dutch soldiers began drinking juniper before going to battle during the 30 Years' War, which gave rise to the phrase Dutch courage. And gin spread to England, and English soldiers brought it back, and that's where it gained the immensely popular name gin, which is short for juniper. And created the gin craze in the early 18th century. And the English version of gin evolved to be a more refined version of juniper, coming the gin that we kind of taste today. And eventually gin became a staple in British culture.
Yeah.
Its production and consumption have continued to this day.
Very cool. Did you know that juniper berries are not berries?
I love it when that happens. I think we've covered this before.
Everything that's named a berry is not actually a berry, by the way, just so you know.
Most berries are not berries, and many fruits are berries.
This one's a cone.
It's a cone.
Yeah, because junipers are fruit trees, right? So the berries it's a cone. It's made of fruit-like coalescing scales that are fused together, mostly blue in color. Only the cones from a handful of juniper species can actually be used as a spice or a flavoring. There's a couple that are actually toxic. They contain the flavonoid juniper, which is most of the flavor, resins, proteins, acetic, malic, and formic acids. Side note on formic acid, it's called formic acid because it is produced by a species of ant, and that is like the Latin word for ant or something like that. Anyway, interesting side note, formic acid, along with aromatic compounds, hydrocarbons, etc. In higher quantities is associated with increased risk of miscarriage. So even small doses are not recommended for pregnant women, and it was thought to have once been used as female birth control.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And consuming the berries in large quantities can cause catharsis, convulsions, and harm kidney function. Yeah, but the Greeks used the berries in their Olympic events as it was thought to increase physical stamina in athletes. And the Romans...
people were doping even back then. Okay.
Oh, people have always been doping. And the Romans used it as a cheap substitute for black pepper because it has a strong flavor. I wouldn't say a peppery flavor, but it is strong.
It does have a strong flavor. Yes, it does. It's a good word, botanical flavor.
Yeah. Well, and also piney. I mean, there's resins in there, so it just kind of tastes like it came from a pine tree, right? Because junipers are coniferous trees or shrubs, and there are between 50 and 67 species of junipers distributed all over the northern hemisphere. The highest known juniper is at 4,900 meters or 16,100 feet in southeastern Tibet and the northern Himalayas.
Awesome.
No, and it makes for the highest tree line on Earth.
That is fantastic.
I see you taking notes.
I am taking notes right now.
And juniper pollen can be very allergic. It can also irritate the skin, so you can get a contact dermatitis from exposure to juniper.
Kind of like poison ivy?
Yeah, kind of like poison ivy. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what we forgot to do at the beginning of the episode is to ask what you're drinking.
Oh, I am having I'm holding it up for people who can't see. I'm having myself a gin and tonic. I go 1 part gin, 3 parts tonic water, and I also add some simple syrup and lemon juice.
I also have a gin and tonic, but similar gin to tonic ratio, but with a heavy twist of lime in mine.
Actually, I should say I have lemon lime. It's some weird mix I got at the store. But yes,
that works. And I asked because gin and tonic is actually, I think, going to be the focus of this episode because gin and tonics are extremely fascinating drinks. And they were
I can't wait to find out. I'm going to drink it.
Thought to have originated by British colonists in India because tonic water contains quinine, and quinine is an anti-malarial. And they added the twist of lime or lemon to prevent scurvy. It does turn out that you have to drink quite a bit of tonic water to get a dose that is large enough to actually prevent malaria, and it's not a good long-term solution to malaria prophylaxis, but that is thought to be the origins of the drink. Quinine is especially fascinating. It was first isolated in 1820 from the bark of the cinchona tree, which is native to Peru. And can I ask what brand of tonic water you are drinking? Do you remember?
I do, but it's nothing fancy. It's Canada Dry, the same company that makes ginger ale.
Yeah, they make
Canada
a good tonic.
Dry.
Yeah, they make a good tonic. I have Fever Tree. Do you know what a fever tree is? The brand comes from quinine. So these trees were known as fever trees because of their effectiveness against the bark's effectiveness against malaria and reducing malarial fevers. And so the medicinal value of quinine has been known for a really long time. As early as 1630, but likely earlier, there are records of using the bark extracts to treat malaria. And for those people who might not be up on their infectious diseases, malaria is a protozoan parasite that is transmitted via mosquitoes, goes through several stages in your blood, can cause really high reoccurring fevers. You can have a fever like every 24 hours or 72 hours as the different life cycle stages go through, and can embed itself in your brain and cause cerebral malaria and can kill you.
Yes, don't get that.
Don't get that. Unfortunately, gin and tonics are no longer that effective. Most malarial species are now resistant to quinine. So don't use it as an anti-malaria. Drink it because you like it.
I'm just thinking about this. I'm thinking about malaria and mosquitoes and recognizing that people are drinking gin and tonics, and so they made themselves immune to gin and tonics.
Well, no, it's because people were actually taking quinine pills for malaria prophylaxis. That was the genetic pressure, evolutionary pressure.
I think it's funnier that they. I'm sticking.
Okay. So quinine was the first known chemical compound to treat an infectious disease.
Quinine?
Yeah, and it was synthesized in the lab in 1944. And it gives the tonic water that bitter taste. And I have a fun fact about quinine. It is fluorescent. It absorbs UV light and releases a blue light.
Oh, I can't wait to try this.
I know. So I think we might need to do a little Instagram reel of the fluorescence of a gin and tonic.
I think we should. It's another excuse to have another drink. A. B. Please drink responsibly. C. Yes. That's going to sound so cool. It's going to be awesome. I know I have a UV light somewhere. I think my son took it. I'll get it back.
Oh, I'm positive I have one somewhere. It says the person whose husband is building a Tesla coil in our living room.
Because that's what you do with living rooms, people. You're not supposed to sit there and entertain people or watch a show or enjoy the fire. You build Tesla coils.
Build Tesla coils. I need to get him a shed.
No.
Yes.
Oh my God. I used to know someone who loved cars so much that he extended his garage into the living room. So if you go into the living room, it's just laminated floors and it's more garage space for another car.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. Now I just found out that he has a Tesla coil in his living room. Now that's the next level of awesome. My living room is wasted space where people could sit and talk.
Yeah.
No.
No. Gotta start some sort of experiment in there. So back to fluorescence.
Like a Tesla coil?
Yeah, a small one. Small one.
So awesome.
It's a father-son project.
So what? That's awesome.
I'd be okay with everything except they use lead solder, and I'm like, you got to get this out of this. So fluorescence. So that is when a substance absorbs light or radiation, and that excites the atoms in that substance, and they become unstable, and they don't like that. So what they'll do is they'll emit energy to be able to go down to their stable state. And that emitted energy in this case of quinine is blue light. So there's a energy source. It kind of shakes everybody up and everyone's like, no, we don't like this. And so they pop it back out in a different form. Little
stupid science question. But does that heat it up considering that there's activity going on inside?
A little bit, maybe. But probably not a lot in this case.
Nothing to.
But we can run the experiment. You know why? Because we have a thermal camera. So we can take a measurement before we excite it with the UV light and during and after.
Freaking awesome.
I can tell you that thermal camera was clutch when our son was a baby. Didn't have to, if I needed to take a temperature, just open the door crack, kind of point the thing at him. Didn't have to go in there. Didn't have to try to take a temperature. If he was sleeping. It's great.
That's actually kind of handy.
I mean, I wouldn't recommend people get one just for that, but it was good.
Oh, I would.
Also can help. They're helpful to protecting water leaks in your house if you think you have one. We're digressing. This is what happens in the second episode.
Science is so cool. Science is so cool.
taking a giant left turn because it's the second episode. And
it's an even number episode.
Yeah.
Just like the Giants in 2010. Every even year they won a World Series.
Oh, that's quite a pattern.
Moving along.
Yes. So, anything else you want to share about gin?
She asked me that as I was drinking gin.
Yeah, there you go.
There are other botanicals other than juniper berries contribute to taste and flavor. And there's coriander, there's citrus peels, there's angelica root, there's licorice, which I hate. There's cardamom, and there's several other type of roots that different companies rather like to put into the botanical infusion process of their gin. And the two main methods of adding botanicals are soaking them in the base gin before distillation, and then also suspended above the spirit in a still. And their flavors are extracted as the alcohol vapors pass through them during distillation.
Interesting.
Which is kind of interesting. And it's also impressive to me that a vapor can go past a little root of something and seemingly not even touch it, yet still touch it and grab some taste from it and some scent from it, and then carry it through the next process of creating gin.
I mean, we're all just atoms behind it. All just atoms bumping into each other. What did we say last time? Physics and chemistry, right?
Bumping in.
They're sounding to each other. And it's interesting because much like vodka, you can use mass spectrometry to get a chemical fingerprint of gin, which I think is pretty cool.
I can listen to spectrometry all day.
Yeah. And
spectrometry.
Two different things, probably slightly different. So there was a study where they took gin and did spectrometry, and they found 135 identified compounds in gin.
In a basic standard gin.
Yeah, not a fancy one. So hydrocarbons, which sound fancy, but are really just carbon with hydrogen. Hydrocarbon.
Still cool.
OHs. Terpenoids, which are probably one of the flavonoids. Phenolics. So we've talked about phenols back in the previous episodes. Fatty acids, aldehydes, of course, our ever-present esters. Gotta have the esters. And they said that the chemical fingerprints were pretty similar between most products. Some products contained unique compounds due to the special ingredients. Like you said, you can add different things like citrus peels or whatever. There is a barrel matured gin. I don't know if you've ever had one of those.
I don't think I have.
Yeah, so that contained some phenolic aldehydes from the oak wood. So it'll be flavors more akin to a bourbon or a whiskey because it's been sitting in the oak. You'll also see vanillin, vanillic acid, gallic acid in the barrel aged higher than in a normal gin.
Not barrel.
Yeah. Well, you'd be able to tell it would be a darker color, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so part of the color comes from the barrel as well. So yeah.
Okay.
So lots going on in the gin, and I found
there's a lot. There are a lot of different ways to serve gin.
Yeah.
Some people like it straight, including some people I don't. Good friends of mine who I just don't understand. They like to drink gin straight. I went for a weekend getaway once to Napa, and we happened upon a distillery in the middle of wine country that makes gin.
Interesting.
And gins are usually very, I guess, earthy, woody, leafy kind of drinks, but theirs was very sweet and fruity. And they walked us through a whole process of the proper way to drink gin. It was a very funny tasting that we went to. It was absolutely adorable. But the whole thing was, before every sip of gin, I drink some club soda, not tonic water, club soda, clear your palate, and then you smell and then you exhale, take the gin in, swish it around, and then swallow it. And as you're swallowing it, you can breathe in again.
Oh.
And supposedly that was their theory of getting the absolute most experience possible out of every little subtle hint of a gin. I did not like it, except for one. They gave us several different gins. One of them was like candy. It was like apple and strawberry, which is a weird combination. It was just ridiculous.
Interesting.
But it was actually very, very interesting. Up in Napa, in the middle of California's famous wine country, there is one lone distillery that managed to stay in business during Prohibition. I forget what minor technicality they were allowed to get around, but it was actually a nice little, very old distillery.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is. It's super interesting. Yeah, I love seeing how those are made. Even if I don't particularly like the alcohol, it's always interesting to see how people make it.
Yeah, you get a tour of the distillery and you see all the different contraptions they have for venting things and compressing things and distilling things. It's very nice. Then you go upstairs to this beautiful, like 1920s era bar with a place to put
nice.
your foot on the bar, actually. An actual bar to put your actual foot on the bar.
Nice.
Spittoons. There were tunes. And I don't think anybody used them, but they were there.
Good.
But yeah, gin it has quite the quite the following.
I think it's a polarizing flavor, right? You love it or you don't, kind of. It's like you said, like ouzo or what's the other one, sambuca, or any of the anise flavored liqueurs, right? That's also a very polarizing flavor. Like I greatly dislike it. And there's very few flavors that I actively just cannot stand. And that's one of them. Nothing even remotely licorice flavored for me, but there's people who love it. So yeah.
Oh, licorice is...
No, I don't. I'm very much not a fan, but my husband, very much a fan. Licorice, black licorice. So
I'll give him all the black jelly beans I come across.
He'd love that.
Horrible.
Yeah.
There are licorice grows wild here.
Really? Oh, interesting.
And it's funny because some people think it stinks and some people just love it. It's like there's no middle ground. There's there's nobody who minds it, doesn't mind it. You hate it or you love it.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
It's like all the eucalyptus by the bay. So much eucalyptus. No, I'm also not a fan of that one. But
it's pretty. But...
Yeah. It's a pretty plant. So I think the last sciencey thing I had was actually back to the quinine, because it's just fascinating. So you can overdose on quinine, right? So like most things, too much is not good. But it has a name. It's called cinchonism, after the tree, cinchona, Cinchona. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but it's okay. So it starts with sweating and nausea, disturbance of vision, particularly initially your color vision.
Really?
It's got to be weird.
I don't want that to happen to anybody, but that sounds actually quite interesting.
Yeah, I wonder how. Like how it just, like what goes? Like, do you start, like, is the sky red all of a sudden? Or cardiac arrhythmias before blindness, coma, and death, of course.
Avoid that last one.
Well, yeah, probably avoid the couple before that too. So they don't know the exact mechanisms, but there is a effect where the quinine will block an important sodium channel in the myocardium. And so that is what's responsible for the arrhythmias, the kind of off heartbeats. And it's thought to have a directly toxic effect on your retinal cells, which would cause the color weirdness. It also causes release of insulin, so it can cause low blood sugar. And some of these effects were seen in high-dose quinine treatment for malaria. In general, the malaria prophylaxis drugs are strong. There's one that is associated with like just the most lurid, disturbing dreams. And it doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to a subset of people where you'll just have really, really vivid, vibrant, disturbing dreams.
Disturbing how? Because it could be...
I don't know.
Spectrum.
Yeah, there's a spectrum there. I think it runs like it might be as individual, kind of what disturbs you. I've never taken this one. A friend did, and she said she had to stop it after 3 days, despite being in like a highly malaria endemic area. She's like, I couldn't do it.
Okay. The horrible side of science, but go on.
Well, as I was saying, so same thing with quinine. Like it was effective at one time. It's not really anymore. But if you had a high dose, as the resistance started and you had to get higher and higher doses, you had more people ending up with these really unfortunate side effects of the drug. One of the initial actual additional uses for it were for muscle pains and cramps, but it was banned for that indication in 2007 by the FDA because so there are these reviews called Cochrane reviews, and they take all of the studies that they can find on this and they kind of do one big huge meta-analysis on it. And the Cochrane reviews are really well regarded in the field for kind of being the definitive word on something. So there was a Cochrane review and it showed absolutely no effect on muscle cramps. So the FDA is like, yeah, you shouldn't be using that for because there are side effects, there are downsides to this drug. You should not use it unless it's actually going to be beneficial for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Odd. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. It was apparently one of the first ways that it was used was for muscle cramps, and then it was found to have this anti-malarial benefit.
Okay. Don't drink alcohol just so you're trying to fight malaria, please. But still, that's cool.
Yeah. It's like I said, an interesting potential side effect to a gin and tonic. But you have to drink a fair amount of tonic to really make a difference. So get pretty
one gin and tonic, then have a lot of just straight up tonic water.
Yeah. So you either have to get really, really sauced or like just drink a lot of tonic water.
Bonus points for sauced. I like that term. It's one of my favorite terms.
right?
Sauced is sauced.
It felt appropriate. I mean, gin and tonic it's very easily, very much identified with British culture, right? And it's G&T. So I feel like we should use more proper English in this episode.
Yeah. Well, they also say you're pissed.
That's true.
That would be a wonderful little episode of all the different British ways to say you're drunk.
Or just ways around the world. We should do an episode. We should do a cheers around the world, and I'm drunk around the world.
Yeah, I have a list of all the different ways people toast their drinks around the world, but another list of ways people say that you're drunk around the world. That would be great. Like
the English translations of them, because I have a feeling they'd be pretty funny.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of English slang that just doesn't translate well, but needs explanation.
Yeah, I think there's
Cockney slang. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think one of my family members currently lives in Australia, and there's a lot of Australian slang that similarly you're like, okay. They have a tendency to shorten a word and add an e at the end. Tennies, sunnies.
My daughter goes to school with a boy who moved here from Australia, and their license plate on the car doesn't say anything, and nobody knows what it means. And I figured out what it means, and it's vulgar as all get out, but it doesn't say anything wrong. If you know what it means, vulgar.
If you don't, then no big deal.
No big deal. It's just some random letters. Try to pronounce it. Doesn't sound like anything either. Fine. Yeah. If you know the origination of it.
Yeah.
Horrible. Yeah. I love it.
So that's all I had for gin.
Gin, if you keep it in your freezer, just like vodka, it'll a little bit thicker.
Yes.
But also, it gives it a much smoother sensation, a much smoother taste. Yeah. Vodka tastes like vodka if you freeze it, or if you don't.
It is smoother.
Gin changes. Gin becomes smoother. So if you find gin to be a very harsh drink, which I think it is, it smooths out. And I found out of all the different ways you can make gin into a cocktail. There's a gin and tonic, which we're having. There's a Negroni and a Tom Collins. There's a martini. We've heard about these. But I found there's something very popular called the French 75.
Oh, I love a French 75.
I've never heard of it. Is it?
Yeah.
It sounds good.
It's very
gin
yummy.
And lemon juice and syrup and champagne.
Yeah, it's super yum.
Nothing you can do to class up anything like adding champagne to it.
Oh, yeah.
And I absolutely have to try this.
You do. I highly recommend. I think that gin...
I have the champagne.
The gin makes a lot of cocktails. There's a lot of cocktails from like the 1920s and 30s that have gin in them. So, yeah, some good options out there.
I got to try it.
So I just looked at...
Speaking of champagne, when we did our champagne episode, you told me having a truffle chips with champagne is a good drink, a good treat.
Did you try it?
It is true.
So good.
Everybody get yourself some truffle chips.
Yes.
Get yourself some champagne.
Yes.
And as you're eating those truffle chips, drink some champagne. I don't get it. It pairs
so well.
A
dry champagne. Dry champagne.
Okay.
The sweet ones maybe not as good, but the dry ones?
I did try it with the sweet, so I'll happily try it again.
There you go.
That was so good.
If you're endorsing the sweet, then that's good. So there is another cocktail that I would recommend with gin, even if you're not necessarily a gin lover. It's called an aviation.
The Ryan Reynolds one?
Aviation gin is Ryan Reynolds gin, but the aviation cocktail is a classic cocktail dating back to the turn of the 20th century. Okay. And it first appeared in a book called Recipes for Mixed Drinks in 1916, and from a bartender of a New York City hotel. And it is 2 ounces of gin, a half an ounce of maraschino liqueur, a fourth of an ounce of creme de violette, which is a purple liqueur, some 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice, and you garnish it with a brandied cherry.
Yes. Okay. I'm a sucker for maraschino anything, so you had me, maraschino.
Yeah.
All right.
So I looked up why the alcohol becomes thicker when you freeze it, like vodka and gin.
Oh.
And it becomes more viscous because the water in the alcohol freezes, and the alcohol doesn't because it has the lower freezing point. And so what you're doing is you've got this kind of solution, if you will, of the frozen water and the not frozen alcohol, and it changes the viscosity of the whole thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us again. Like, subscribe, listen, share, make the cocktail. Let us know if you like them or what your favorite gin cocktail is.
And please drink responsibly. Please, please, please.
Yeah, drink like your liver's watching you.
Liver's watching.
All right. Until next time.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.